Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Solo ReacTalk. This evening, I'm going to be reacting to Star Wars vs. Warhammer 40K, Episode 42, Mortal Fall Part 2, made on the AFanWithTooMuchTime YouTube channel. If you guys want to check out my previous reaction to Part 1, as well as other episodes of Star Wars vs. Warhammer 40K, remember that the playlist card is going to be at the top right here. Just click on it and you'll be able to access them. If you want to check out the original video as well as AFanWithTooMuchTime's YouTube channel, the links are going to be in the description below. Yes, part 1 of Mortal Fall. Ahsoka and Foreigners had to devise plans on writing a letter that is going to be delivered to Saint Lazarus in the Basilica. To discuss terms of surrender, or not surrender, but, ceasefire. Yes, to discuss the terms of ceasefire between the Imperium of Man and the Galactic Republic. This is a project that is spearheaded by Ahsoka, and Ahsoka alone. Nobody within the Galactic Republic's command structure knows about this. This is her own initiative. And she has finally convinced Foreigners to cooperate and to work with her after Ahsoka showed her Bothan as well as Nerva. And I guess you could say that Ahsoka was appealing to his emotions, especially with his connection to Bothan and to Nerva. And it worked. It worked. And now Foreigners is going to head over to the Basilica and to hand over the letter that is written in Ahsoka's blood on a litany parchment, which is very, I would say it's very convincing. Very convincing. It's in blood, it's in her blood, it's on a litany roll or scroll. I'm sure Saint Lazarus will be pleased enough, to believe that, okay, this is actually a letter of truth and not some sort of subterfuge or deception. Hopefully. We'll just have to wait and see. Foreigners has to convince the commanding officers that he's telling the truth. He has to convince Saint Lazarus that this letter is actually genuine. Good luck. Good luck to you, Foreigners. Good luck. Now we're continuing on with part 2 of Mortal Fall. Let's see if we are going to continue with Foreigners or are we heading for a different storyline. 3, 2, 1, go.
The fires glittered like living jewels, each one a small scion of light born of the stars. The strafing shots of blaster and last bolts dazzled her eyes like spikes of chem-induced ecstasy. Every fierce flare and luminescent shower hearkening to the great, dark purpose she had been shaped to fulfill. All the movement, the noise, like a never-ending festival of constant action, and the price of admission was no more or less than life, yours or someone else's. The battlefield below the petite killer was a scattering of subconscious and interconscious beauty which could not but stutter her breath in her chest.
Who is this? Who is AFanWithTooMuchTime talking about?
The broken assassin rocked gently on her heels, perched on the very ledge of one of the spires, ignoring the languid chatter which came from behind her, where stood her master's 2 other companions, each so far back in the priority of her attention that they may as well have been invisible spirits. Before her, after a steep drop, was an overlook they had found to wait for Master Weiler and his orders, and from here she could see nearly the entire Basilica battle as it played out.
Master Weiler. Tar Weiler? Tar Weiler has other people in his retinue? Okay, I thought... Well, so far I've only heard of Jakal. Okay.
So many colors, so many different kinds of heat, explosions, and struggle. So many varied flavors of death. The sky itself was slowly dying red as the smoke from the battle grew higher and higher, obscuring the sun and leaving only one color of light to slip by. Crouched, her toes hanging slightly over the edge, her enhanced eyes ached dully in her skull as she watched on with unblinking, predatory readiness. The bright blue spheres vibrating eagerly in her sockets, hopping between the myriad details within her sight in rapid succession. Her cheeks bulged, each one containing a half-depleted jawbreaker which she noisily rolled around with her tongue. The circular lumps of sugar being worn down by her constant slurping and sucking. The dormant weapon savored the constant drip of sugar she got from the two hard candies, letting their stimulating flavor flow from her mouth and up to her brain, triggering small surges of adrenaline and endorphins, associated as it was with the heaviest of her combat stims. Hacate shuddered, muscles twitching, augmentations temporarily rousing, as she allowed the memories those devastating chemicals had branded into her very blood soothe over the assassin's twisted, uneasily slumbering mind. Her need to do as she had been trained to struggled against the mental safeties of her first face.
Wait a minute. I've been trying to remember if Tar Weiler had, more people in his retinue. I remember Jakal, but I don't remember this lady assassin. I don't remember the other two people that she's with. Hold on. I don't think... No. I don't even know her name. Wait a minute. Samael had 3 people with him, right? I remember when he was talking to Ahsoka. He had 3 people with him. One of them was a woman with blonde hair, and she kind of looked like she was dead. And then there were other 2 people with him. Wait, is Samuel part of Tar Weiler's retinue? That means all of them are also part of Tar Weiler's retinue. I think that's the case. Okay, let me just continue and I'll see if I can find that page I'm looking for, where I wrote down their names. Okay, let's just continue. Sorry guys, I'm digressing.
Her second and third held down in nets of sleep, mimetically cast and conjured within the walls of her thoughts. But, at least for the moment, the nets were strong, and her thin first face grinned manically down at the sprawling scene before her eyes. Lights, movement, sweetness, fun, all things which pleased and strengthened the first face of Hacate. The face her master chose to keep around the most often. The young woman had gone entire missions in this face, gleefully tailing his serious business, enjoying the novelty and opportunity to see new things, taste new sweets, and sometimes, very rarely, do some killing.
Wait, so that's not her real face? Okay. Hacate?
As her first face, she very scarcely was allowed to kill. That face was her safe face, the mind she turned to leisure, allowing most of her meticulously scavenged brain to sleep, fitfully writhing behind her shimmering blue eyes. Hecate delighted in her first face, but most, if not all, of the time she spent in that face felt like a dream. Fun, meaningless, light as air, and heavy as thick blanket sheets.
So, this face, is it a different part of her consciousness? Or is it like literally, like physically removing the face and putting a new face? No, I think it's a different part of her consciousness that's been suppressed, and then this, another consciousness that's been brought up that is the killer, essentially. Like she has multiple personalities, something like that. Okay.
She didn't mind it when she could remain in this face, where time moved fast and slow, where laws were mixed and mingled, made smooth and easy, and where her past and future were an equal blur. But there was a sharpness she lost in it, a reduction of who and what she was. Did the gun enjoy resting in the holster? Does the blade not mind modestly hiding in its sheath? Perhaps, but only when given the promise of future service, of the ability to one day come alive once more and be of use. She hated her waking self, her second and third faces both, but it galled her dreaming self to dance through entire missions, months and months, without truly opening her eyes even a single time. But suddenly, Hecate saw that this mission would not be like most of the others. Her muscles tensed and stilled, an automatic process beginning within her mind, like dominoes of colossal size, slowly swaying and falling into one another one at a time. It was not the rush of Republic soldiers moving in towards the fight, or the swarms of rebels overcoming the walls, or even the arrival of their battleships in the air above them, which triggered this awareness within her and began the change.
I just found the page. I did not write down their names. Probably I didn't know about their names. I just wrote bounty hunters, 4 people. Yeah, it's Samuel and then his 3 other companions, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, guys. I was really concerned. Like, I don't know who this lady is.
After all, such things were above the considerations of this face of hers. No, what alerted her and triggered the conversion that was occurring even then within her was the bright red flare she suddenly spotted arching into the air above the fight. Crimson in a very specific way, and pulsing in a very peculiar pattern, the signal was unmistakable to her segmented mind, and at the sight, 1,000,000 eyes within her began to creak open.
I remember Samael shot a flare gun. That's his flare. So this is the secret weapon that he's bringing forth to fight against the Jedi. Oh, wow. Alright.
She felt cobwebs falling away, a new awareness unfurling itself within her, and she felt her mouth begin to water behind her straight white teeth. Her blue eyes became wide, and then even wider and wider still. The distant beacon flickered in her vision, calling to something hidden, signaling the depths of memory and action which had been sleeping beneath a mimetic veil. That veil now parted and dissolved in a vortex of mental components which all streamed into place as rehearsed. Vivid recollections of running across a bleak surface came into focus, of worn striking mats, and hours spent pushing her fists into them. Machine faces with barely scraps of flesh left on them lifted her arms and legs, measured her, asked her questions.
Servitors?
Push and push and push, always pushing her, then restraining her, exploding who and what she had been, and then collecting the pieces and building her anew. This arm was not her arm. It was his weapon. This leg was not her leg. It was his weapon.
Oh, Tarweiler?
This life was not her life. It was his weapon. Her first face began to dry away and withdraw, like water caught on the surface of an ascending void craft, the bright red flashes of the flare unanchoring a hook within her and dragging out something far more substantial from deep, deep beneath the surface of her thoughts. Visions of change, of biting down into a medical bit as she hung, suspended above cruel metal hands which opened her skin and operated on her body in the same manner as they may for a vehicle or complex gun.
It seems like she was going to become a Officio Assassinorum agent, right? I don't know if the Inquisition can actually requisition the assistance of the Officio Assassinorum and have them part of their retinue. I'm not entirely sure about that. Maybe it is possible. Maybe Tarweiler did go to the Officio Assassinorum and, picked her out, to become part of his group. I don't know. I'm just guessing here.
She was imperfect. They needed to make her better. They needed to make her change so that she could fit comfortably into his hand. Segmented portions of Hacate's mind came awake in a rush, each carved away from her greater whole, specialized, generalized, and reintegrated. To a mind reader, her thoughts would prove cavernous, scattered, and united all at once, grasping at her will, being no better than grasping at a cascade of worms, only able to affect so many with only 2 hands. Her densely wrinkled gray matter came alive after weeks of dormancy, and with this awakening, augmentations buried deep within every inch of her body rumbled and stirred into activity. Recollections of hardening, of growing, of getting stronger, feeling faster, feeling better. Even in recovery, they forced her to walk, to bend slowly against her injuries, to become immune to pain, and then more than immune. Her knuckles hardened, her bones creaking within her as they grew thicker and thicker, the better to brace the improvements drilled into and through them. And
my gosh, they created a superhuman killing machine.
those skeletal servos began to whine inside her flesh, waking with a burn that filled her muscles from neck to toes. Organic, implanted nodules which harvested her body's hormones and nutrients suddenly reversed their flows, no longer ambiently draining her to create their stock, but now dripping their storage of artificially synthesized combat and rejuvenation drugs directly into her blood. Fire filled her from head to toe, bringing with it images within her mind, images of tests, of successes, and of failure. She was bound to a chair, strips of cloth covering her eyes, like an animal which may panic at the first sight of the unfamiliar. An argument was being had, words she understood, but could barely hold in her mind. A thick, uncomfortable device, a collar of some kind, pushed her chin up slightly and pressed harsh barbs into her neck. The barbs were metal and alive, filling her with a gentle poison that made everything around her swim and slide in a narcotic haze. They had worked so hard on her to make her right, to make her fit, but it was all for naught. Hecate bore the terrible taint within her, a demonic power which was not meant for her. For she was to be a tool of purity, uncorrupted, clean only when covered in blood. But now she was a waste, impure, lost to the cause. The taint made her body frailer than was expected, and it compromised her connections to the One.
So this demonic entity, it is of the warp, right? That's inside her.
The only thing left for her was liquidation and recycling of what could be taken back. But this was not a judgment she was hearing, though she had judged herself. It was an argument, and against the points thus made, a powerful voice contended back against them. She would never be purely his weapon, the weapon of the god of mankind. But she could become his weapon, the weapon of his voice, of his word, Wyler's weapon, his tool for rendering the greater judgment. But she was too weak to finish the temple's course, to survive all of the augmentations. The voice did not care. The master looked upon her flaws, and behind her blindness, she had felt his smile. I will finish what was started. I will make something useful from what you call a failure. In the name of my family, I'll not let her go to waste. The Wyler had said then.
Samuel? Samuel Wyler? Samuel Wyler. Tar Wyler and Samuel Wyler. Aye. No, this is shocking. This is shocking. This is just unbelievable. Was Tar Wyler prepared to kill his own brother? Because he's still fighting on this planet. If Tar Wyler's plan succeeded in, commencing exterminatus on this planet, his brother would be dead, along with everybody else on this planet. Does he know that? Does he care about that? Sure. Wow. All right. And I was told that there are more Wylers in the Star Wars galaxy. That it's not only Tar Wyler. There's other Wylers here. So yeah, this is just shocking. So is Samuel Wyler, is he an Inquisitor, or is he part of his brother's retinue?
Years ago, Hacate breathed out a breath of cold hoarfrost as the psychic eye which invisibly adorned her mind creaked open, making the air around her body wave as though subject to extreme heat. And her true eyes, once blue as the sky, began to shift their color as the invisibly small silver tubes which lined her irises began to flood her augmented eye lenses with specialized crimson particles, designed to shield her from flashes and explosions, as well as extend her overlapping vision into the infrared spectrum. They dyed her vision and brought her true self to the fore. Hacate stood up straight on the ledge, red eyes wide, toes still hanging over the lip of an impossibly high drop. Her body vibrated with countless internal transformations, skin shivering and shaking before gradually settling into blade-like stillness. And all the while, the awakened assassin smoothly reached into her long, black trench coat with both arms, grasping to either side of her long, dark garment. Her right hand withdrew itself in a smooth flourish. A curved black knife clutched between each of her knuckles, each blade humming softly as their edges caressed the air. The other hand drew forth no weapon, raising the object high into the air over her head as she whipped her right arm out to the side. Hecate turned her head and spat out the 2 half-finished motes of sugar she had been sucking on, letting them bounce off the rim of the drop and watching them fall before she faced forward again and carefully placed the object over the skin of her suddenly blank expression.
Whoa, is this image, the artist's impression of Hacate? Because this is cool.
A bone-white mask, perfectly fitted to her face, fell over her features, caressing the skin of her expression and adhering with a hiss and a click. And
Kubik, what the hell? Oh my gosh. Look at that.
with that, her third face was now turned, eyes blazing deeply crimson beneath the customized pale mask which proclaimed her imperial path. Her sister's face, her retraining, her home, and then her new home. Images of raw pain and emotion rocked over and against her open eyes, but she blinked them away with a practiced ease, converting that trauma into a pure, vibrant desire for violence. Without any further delay, Hecate crossed her arms, one empty, one holding a wicked blade between each finger, and twisted, turning and dropping down off of the ledge and into a certainly lethal drop. The nearly complete agent of the Avesser Temple twirled as she fell.
Avesser Temple. How do I how do I spell that? Avesser Temple. Okay. Ooh.
Turning and spinning rapidly, becoming a drill as the air whistled in her ears and blew back her long, blonde hair. The broken assassin felt no fear. In fact, she barely felt the thrill of her fall at all. It took much more than that to stir the blood of the third face of Hecate unleashed. She spun down and suddenly plunged into a small legion of speeder bikes which blitzed through the air directly below her path.
Oh, she's gonna get on one of them. I'm sure she is.
She arrested her momentum 50 feet below the ground, catching a passing vehicle, moving with the momentum of her spinning fall to throw herself up and over one side of the bike. Hecate kicked one of the two clones who rode the speeder off with a long-legged strike, and used her knife-bearing hand to tear through the face and head of the other clone, who was actually at the controls. He fell away like a limp sack of dead porgs, and Hecate settled into the seat, her sin-skin suit squeaking as her hands slid over handles and triggers. The assassin felt a deep, mental clench, one eye twitching as a specialized part of her segmented brain asserted itself, quickly comparing the controls she felt and saw to over 10,000 similar designs, which had been loaded into her mind, taken from both Imperial and Xenos sources. Her hands flicked across the various buttons, dials, and throttles, causing the bike to stutter and drop out of the air like a downward thrown lance. Yet, less than a second later, she pulled the bike back up, flying between the hundreds of others which hovered about in all directions, grinning to herself as she amalgamated a control scheme for herself.
Man, the fact that she can understand how these things work in such a short space amount of time. I mean, if I just dropped onto a speeder, I wouldn't know what to do. I wouldn't know what to do. I'd just die. But here she is. She's in control now.
Several clones took note of the hijacking. The second clone mounted on each of the alerted bikes, aiming a blaster to try to shoot her down, and wasting little time in filling the air around them with the bright blue glare of their blaster bolts. Seeing this, eyes bouncing and darting inside her mask, Hacate drifted to the left and maintained her level and flight speed until they began to shoot. Swinging her legs to one side to ride side-saddled, while veering hard to the right and spinning the speeder bike in the air, Hacate revved its repulsor drive to maximum and sent herself flying across the air in a low arc. The trail of shots that chased her almost instantly veered into lethal crossfire, shooting 2 other bikes down before her arching spin terminated, slamming into the side of another speeder bike in the process, both exploding as they collided. But while the 2 clones on the other bike perished during the sudden detonation, Hacate had already thrown herself up and off the bike by the time it crashed, using its shockwave to push her just a little further into the air, hooking another one of the bikes and swinging onto its back. She
is floating like a butterfly and she's stinging like a bee. These clones have no answer to her. The clones have no answer to someone like this.
Scuffled with a surprised clone there, but tore his arms away with jagged swipes of her knife-bearing hand, throwing him over the side as he screamed. Mask spattered in red, she leapt onto the back of the driver, breaking his neck and sliding him smoothly out of his seat before taking control. The bikes around her scattered, curving around to try to follow her and get behind her, but by now they were coming close to the Imperial Wall. The devastated structure was pocked with holes and blasts, melted down almost halfway to its length by turbo laser blasts, and clearly already overrun. Eyes wide with building adrenaline, Hacate sped up as they came for her, crouching down and lowering her body's profile as she angled for one of the blast craters in the side of the fortification, cracking a jagged grin beneath her mask as she shrank down as much as she could against the silhouette of the speeder bike she now rode. This helped her to avoid the shots that soon came chasing after, blue bolts of plasmatic fury scorching the air around her as the clones behind her opened fire.
And this is a different theater of this war or this battle that we have not seen before. Because for so long we've been on the ground, with the Galactic Republic and with the Imperium of Man forces. We were fighting on the ground. We've also fought in space. We've had the space battles as well. But now we're having an atmospheric, something like an atmospheric battle, with these speeder bikes. And this is also quite interesting how, what's her name again? Hacate. Yes, Hacate is just, she's playing around with these clones. She's really just playing around with these clones. And it's just a different dimension to this battle that we have not seen before, and it's a good addition. Yeah. Hacate. Wow.
But that was not an issue for the Imperial Assassin, who knew a good trick to buy herself the time she would need to reach the wall. Hacate spun her speeder to avoid their tracking, dervishing it long ways this time while keeping her on course. The twirling bike managed to confuse the rear fire long enough to enable her to lance into the hole she had been aiming for, clearing it completely. Or at least, clearing the first hole completely. But while the weapon that had blasted the wall here had indeed managed to penetrate the other side, the hole there was much smaller, too small to allow a speeder bike through.
Then evasive maneuvers?
In the fraction of a second she had after coming through the first breach, she angled her bike down, eyes vibrating in her skull, grin now a death-seeking smirk which covered her hidden face, tense and ready. She leapt off the bike as it veered down, bringing her arms and legs in tightly, still spinning with the momentum of her bike and clearing the second hole only by the skin of her teeth, the speeder slamming violently into the wall beneath her. Again, she was falling, this time twirling all the way down to the ground, converting her sideways spin into a frontward one. Her arms and legs curled in as she hit the metal floor, spinning, moving like a wheel, rolling with her momentum before springing open in a way which would have seemed natural to a droideka, knives splayed in her hand.
And you know, I've said this before about the variety of forces that the Imperium of Man has at their disposal, right? This lady is just she is in her own class of people. You know, with the Tar Weilers and the Samuel Weilers of this world. They're in their own class of people. You know, you have your Imperial Guard, you have your Tech Priests, you have your Astartes, you have your Librarians, you have all of these other different factions of the Imperium of Man, and then you have people like her who exist. Like it's just so fascinating and just overwhelming, you know, in terms of what the Imperium of Man has to offer on a battlefield. The clones have stopped with the clones. Yes, they might have their own little commando units, yes, but they don't have anything like Hacate here, right here. You know, they don't have anything like her. They don't have anything like Tar Weiler. The Jedi don't have anything like Tar Weiler. They don't have anything like Samuel Weiler. Oh, the Imperium of Man.
All around her were rebels and clones, most of them too busy already fighting with the Imperial Guardsmen they were surrounding, or with charging towards the Basilica, to notice her. A fatal mistake on their part, and one most never realized as Hecate slid to a standing position, clenched her curved knives tightly, and began to deal death. Her booted feet pumped, artificial muscle strands straining against reinforced bones as she accelerated herself to an utterly inhuman speed. As she did, the assassin lashed out, left and right, knives cutting the air alongside her swift feet, spinning in the midst of battle, each blade juggled from one hand to the next. Fully caught in her cavorting dance of death, Hecate began opening throats and twisting blasters out of clenched fists, breaking them open along their centers like long metallic eggs.
But Hecate, don't you need to get to Samuel Weiler? Don't you need to get to him as soon as possible? He shot the flare, so I know you're good at killing people, but I think now you're just playing around. You have to go. You have to go serve your master, Samuel Weiler. He's expecting you.
Some of these blasters had glowing cylindrical containers called Tabana gas housings, which would come free after the blaster was broken open in a particular way. Sometimes these canisters had cracks or damage on them from the maneuver. These Hecate left behind to explode in her wake, blowing bloody holes in the lines of the Republic soldiers before they even had time to realize what was among them. But some of these containers were whole and unbroken, and these she snatched out of the air, collecting them in her left hand and juggling them between her fingers until she had 5. And as soon as she had collected all the glowing blue vials she would need, the dancing killer came to where she was going, and where she would need to put these glowing blue tubes of explosive gas to use. Before her, being steadily surrounded by Republic troops, but currently dueling 2 Jedi Masters, was her own master, Samael Weiler. He was on the ground, on his back, staving off a purple blade of light with his flickering, flashing white saber. He appeared to be mere moments from being overwhelmed and killed, a thought which instantly soured all of the flavor in the assassin's mouth. In response to that sight, the third face of Hecate released a scream taken and amplified by the technology in her mask, which shielded her ears from the following sonic blast.
So you're seeing something like a banshee now? Wow.
The hateful killer cartwheeled towards the assailants, converting her breakneck forward speed into upward force as she leapt into the air, her arms crossed over her chest. At the apex of her leap, she uncrossed her arms, running her blades over the vials, slashing them just as she let them fly. Having thrown them like glowing shuriken knives into the gathering forces around her master, Hecate landed as a ring of colorful explosions surrounded the three combatants, the assassin dropping right in amongst them. She had planned to plant her feet in the face of the man assailing her master, a bald Jedi with an amethyst blade.
Careful now, that's Mace Windu. Careful.
But he seemed to sense her coming. Lifting his forearm and turning, he absorbed her twin kicks into his block, his blade still pressing down against her master's weapon. But in that moment, when he was forced to redirect his attention to Hecate, Mace Windu gave Samael the chance the Inquisitor had been waiting for, and he took it. Grunting with effort, the large Imperial man bent and arched, kicking the Jedi Master in the back of the head with a thick boot. The blow shook the bald man, leaving him open for Hecate's next attack.
Now be careful. Obi-Wan Kenobi is there too.
Still crouching against his forearm, pinned there by the force with which she had dropped, the failed Avessor assassin pushed back, planning to flip away from Mace's guard and kick him across the face in the same instant. She very nearly accomplished it, but another hand blocked the kick for Windu, the second Jedi sliding in and grabbing her speeding shin, absorbing the force with no small amount of warp trickery. Face bright with a challenger's grin, the blonde Jedi who had blocked her kick closed his fist around her leg, whipping around on his heel and throwing her with superhuman strength. Hecate spun in the air, absorbing that momentum as well, and landing on all fours like a predatory cat, smoothly rising and tossing two knives into the air, catching them with her free hand as she stalked forward. Her master had also taken the chance to kick off from the ground and roll away, avoiding two sloppy down chops from the purple blade-wielding Jedi who he had been facing. The bald Jedi slid back after, shaking his head in pain and regrouping with the other Jedi Knight, blade before him, wounded arm positioned behind. In the same vein, Hecate slid over to her master's side, her movements elegant and controlled, especially compared to his own motions, his legs staggering as he coughed blood. He glanced in her direction, appraising her as he did.
This image is so cool, and it's just the first part of it. We still haven't seen Hecate on the other side there, but already with Tarweiler and his blade, and it's just that, lightning effect on it. Oh, this is nice. Kubik, yes.
Within her was a churning heat, a frenzied need to move, to compete, and to win through death. Her skin was tingling, her heart rate had finally risen, and her anticipation was so high she could feel her mouth watering again. Death! She needed more death! The augments inside of her ached to be strained, and her blood felt molten with the amount of chemicals which had flooded her veins. Hecate, pass me a stim, he growled, looking forward once more. Sighing impatiently, she did so, carefully but quickly reaching into her long jacket with her offhand and drawing out a needle and vial, already adjoined. She tossed the injector his way in the same moment. Samael caught it in his own offhand, using his thumb to flick off the plastic safety over the actual needle and stabbing it into his leg without hesitation. A bloom of warm heat was suddenly expelled out into his body from the point of that contact. The hot, itchy waves of sensation moving through his body and stealing pain from his myriad injuries. The Inquisitor breathed out a groan which gradually became elated, pulling the empty vial out of his leg and tossing it aside. "Better," he grunted, his eyes and Hacate's locked onto those of the two Jedi across from them. "Much better," he affirmed, wiping some of the blood from his chin. "Do you have a preference, Lord Wyler?" she asked, voice slick with vicious intentions. Samael nodded grimly and thumbed in the direction of the bald Jedi Master. "You take blue, I'll take purple," he ordered, rising to his full height and wiping more blood from his lips.
Are you sure you want to take on Mace Windu? Okay, good luck. I mean, I would have switched it over. You take Obi-Wan Kenobi and Hacate takes Mace Windu. But okay, good luck. Good luck, you're gonna need it. Well, yeah, you're gonna need it. You're gonna need it because Mace Windu is a no-nonsense guy. He is attack, 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 and more attack. At least with Obi-Wan Kenobi, you know, usually he's on the defensive, and he won't think about killing you instantly. But good luck.
"Yes," hissed Hacate, slinking off to the left, eyes now only on Obi-Wan. "Hacate, cover me. 3-to-5 ratio," her master added, making her frown under her mask.
No, Samuel, you're telling her to fight against Obi-Wan and then you're saying that she must also cover you. Like, why do you want her to do so many tasks? You want to deal with Mace Windu? Go deal with him. Go fight him while she deals with Obi-Wan.
And sigh again. "I cannot promise a kill if you make me a bodyguard," she whined. "Killing isn't the primary objective here, Heck. We're trying to get out of here. Use combat doctrine Warlock Prime on the Jedi. Understand?"
Oh, okay, alright, I understand now.
He ordered her more gruffly. She did not respond, instead twitching a little, red eyes boring holes into Obi-Wan's face. "Understand, Hacate?" he pressed. She nodded hastily. Yes, fine. 3-to-5, Warlock Prime. Can I try to kill him now?" She snapped back, her voice agitated, her skin continuing to twitch. The Jedi she was staring down smirked. "My dear, I'll be impressed if you can even keep up. Let's not get ahead of
Oh ho, Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan. Yeah.
ourselves and claim a kill just yet," said the Jedi, his blue eyes flashing in direct opposition to her red ones. Hecate smirked more widely, licking her lips under her mask. She was going to enjoy this one. She could already tell.
Oh, alright, guys. Yeah, that was Star Wars vs. Warhammer 40K, episode 42, Mortal Fall Part 2, on the AFanWithTooMuchTime YouTube channel. Yeah, we got introduced to the Broken Assassin, Hacate, who has been, should I say, she was requisitioned by Samuel Wyler. Almost said Tarwyler, sorry. Samuel Wyler. And, you know, yes, she had failed in her endeavor to become the perfect assassin under this temple of Avesra the Avesra temple. She had failed to become their perfect assassin. But Samuel Wyler saw great promise in her, great potential in her, and he decided that he would bring her under his wing, under his fold. And yeah, essentially now she owes her life to Samuel Wyler, and Samuel Wyler is her master. And the process of how she became a broken assassin, really, it seemed extremely painful, non-ending pain, non-ending suffering, and her mental fortitude has been strengthened, yes. However, her personality, if I can say that, has been shattered as well. She has different parts of herself, different faces of herself. One that takes over for other duties, and then another face that takes over for other duties. So yes, her personality, her consciousness has been, ripped apart into smaller pieces, if I can say that. And she is a very powerful individual belonging to the Imperium of Man. And like I stated before, the Imperium of Man, they have so many divisions, so many forces on Axum. And, people like Tarweiler, people like Samuel Weiler, and now also Hacate are just on a different level. Really, they're just on a different level. Human beings that have been augmented, that have been, given technology and warp knowledge infused into them, making them these very exotic, very heretical, human beings, if I would say that. And the Star Wars side, they just don't have anything to answer to that. They really just don't have anything yet to answer to this type of variety that the Imperium of Man has on display. They just don't have it. They are very limited. But, I trust that Obi-Wan Kenobi and Mace Windu are going to make it out of this alive. I don't think they're going to die here. Like I said, maybe they should have switched places. Maybe it should have been Hacate dealing with Mace Windu while Samuel Weiler deals with Obi-Wan Kenobi. But this is Samuel's decision. Let's see how it plays out in the next part. Maybe it'll be part 3 of Mortal Fall, or part 4. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, guys, that's it. That's it for tonight. Remember, if you want to check out the original video as well as AFanWithTooMuchTime's YouTube channel, the links are going to be in the description below. If you like my reaction, please give me a like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Click on the notification bell if you want to be up to date with my latest videos. And hopefully I'll see you guys next week. Yeah. Alright. I'm going to be watching this again. I need to rewatch the beginning parts of this video again, so I can fully understand the background story with Hacate. Am I saying her name right? Hacate. Sorry, Hacate. Sorry. Hacate.